Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the only true revolution that has ever taken place in man's history. Evolved the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny.
The United States of America, the greatest nation in history, ordained by our founders to be guided by divine providence. But today, we are witnessing the orchestrated disintegration of America. Take a few seconds and take a look around your town, your state, look at your country and your world, and boldly ask, what in the hell is going on?
But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
Welcome to the podcast Project Third Eye Opened, where we dare to question with boldness the events that are unfolding around us that others won't. At the end of the day, it is we the people who will decide the destiny of the nation. Now, introducing your host, Tony L.
Greetings, America. This is Tony L, and this is another very exciting podcast and videocast presentation of Project Third Eye Open. And to start, as I always do, giving praise to the Most High. Without Him, I would not be doing this. I would not be here. I would not have been born in the greatest country on the planet. And I would not be bringing this to you. These are very, 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 very exciting times in which we currently are living and existing. So I want to say you got to go through to get to it. And we are going through it now. What's going to come up on the end, for many of us, is greatness, blessings. But as we go through this period, we have to first look at and be cognitive of where we are economically, as a nation, and as an individual ourselves. The best times of America are in the rearview mirror. We need to first come to a reckoning with that. Many of us still want to believe that it's still 1999. It's not. With that understanding, we need to look at our economic situation. If you got fiat currency, paper currency in your pocket, you need to think long and hard of looking at an offering. Diversify. Look into gold and silver, precious metals, real currency, constitutional currency. Not currency, money. Not currency, it's money. Something of value, something that appreciates in value. Look at gold and silver. If you go to my site, project.iopen.com, that's project, third spelled out, the letter I, open, ed.com. Look at that offer, check it out. You're going to purchase gold and silver there. I would appreciate you doing so. But if not there somewhere, you get big discounts. Just by being a listener, get big discounts just by being a listener, going to that site and get coins, get bars, get jewelry, whatever. But it's real money. Look at that. If not there, get it somewhere, because things are changing. Trump is trying to warn everybody, but he ain't getting no help. And the population is not educated enough to understand direct talk. So he's not talking directly. which is what we need. But I'm telling y'all right now, get your hands on some gold and silver. This is the fourth and final installment of this, what I consider to be very important conversation having to do with a man who's very, very pivotal in how politicians communicate to us and how politics is exercised now, and not just here, but around the world, particularly those on the left, how they are manipulating us, how they are skewing our perception of things. And yes, we are heard of George Orwell. That's pivotal as well, and you can learn a lot about how we are being manipulated. But rules for radicals, I think it's a different beast, because in my humble opinion, George Orwell was picked up by many on the right, not to necessarily use against us, but say, hey, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing, how they doing word speak. Look at how what they're doing and how they're doing it. The left is picked up rules for radicals, have taught the teachings from what I consider a theological perspective, because it is a religion. It is a religion. That's why I call it theological tenets of the man called Saul Alinsky. And his book, 12 Rules for Radicals, tells you 1, 2, 3 to 12, the tenets of his theology, the principles of his theology. But for whatever reason, media or people on the right, though they're using these tenets, the last man I heard tried to warn the people that this is being used, it was used upon, was given to get used upon us, was former Speaker Newt Gingrich when he was running against Obama. Try to tell you about Saul Alinsky. And of course, the liberal media tried to make him out to be a buffoon and totally discount and discredit everything he was saying in regards to rules for radicals and Saul Alinsky and how Obama was Saul Alinsky Knight. And in many cases, the attack from the left on Gingrich was successful, because unfortunately the media and the left know that general population is not going to go out and read, not going to go out and do their own homework. Which was the reason why I'm bringing this to you. Hopefully that y'all will not necessarily take what I say as gospel, but hey, the book is out there. The book is online. The man's information is out there. Look at it for yourself. Do your own homework. So I'll tell you to do anyway. But I'm bringing this to you because I want to do my part. To tell you how this man's influenced 2 generations, and maybe more to come if this is not brought to light. The 3 people that I'm focusing on right now is Obama, which, I mean, you can't get no closer to Saul Alinsky than Obama in regards to politics. Then, of course, Biden, who was up under Obama for 8 years, and who knows his exposure to Saul Alinsky theology prior. And then there's Trump, who some argue, and I could definitely understand the argument that he had to come in here and use it for his for his defense. You know, which you will see in most cases his application of Saul Alinsky's techniques have been defensive and have been solely targeted at his opponents, not at the American people, not to the detriment of the country. That you cannot say in the case of Saul Alinsky and those who has picked up his theology and used it on the left. So let's go on. We ended on Rule 10. So this is going to be Rule 11. This, sorry. All these technical issues. So we got Rule 11. The principle of successful attacks is a constructive alternative. Never let the enemy score points because you're caught without a solution to a problem. Oh, sorry, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Activist organizations have an agenda, and the strategy is to hold a place at the table, to be given a forum to wield their powers. So they have to have a compromise solution. Obama, how did he use this strategy? In 2010, Obamacare. He's criticized healthcare system while offering a solution. Even though Republicans attacked it, they struggled to propose an alternative. Why? I don't know. I mean, people want to criticize our healthcare system, but to say that socialized medicine is the answer, that's a non-starter to me. There's many other solutions out there, like lowering the cost of litigation in regards to malpractice. You could lower the cost of medicines. Listen, we have the best healthcare system because it gives the individuals, the doctors, the professionals, the ability to earn what they're worth. But then when you bring in litigation and the pharmaceutical industry, which is, for whatever reason, has an automatic seat at the table when it comes to government policies, that's the problem. And then when you have a healthcare system that is not a care prevention system, that's the problem. There's other ways of going at this. So why the Republicans didn't have an answer to this? Kind of tells you where this went off the rails quickly. Obama and the Democrats attacked the healthcare system. High costs, millions of uninsured Americans, insurance companies denying coverage for pre-existing conditions. Instead of just complaining, Obama proposed Obamacare, mandated insurance coverages, expanded Medicaid, and prevented denial of pre-existing conditions. Now, the mandated insurance coverages is definitely where it was right for attack. How you gonna mandate insurance coverage when you're talking to a private company? Somebody got to explain that part to me. You gonna tell me what I'm gonna charge and can't charge to people who choose to do business with me? But Republicans let that pass. Obama used this technique number 11 successfully. He didn't criticize the problem. He offered a clear policy. The opponents were forced to argue against a concrete plan rather than attacking complaints. Even after years of opposition, Republicans failed to fully repeal Obamacare because they had no strong alternative. Of course, there's other reasons behind that someone would call much more sinister, but we'll leave that alone for right now. Biden, on the other hand, used this strategy in looking at the Inflation Reduction Act, criticizing inflation and offering a legislative fix. The left always look for government to come in. Obama did it with Obamacare. There's other applications that could involve private industry, because private industry has an incentive. They have an incentive to offer solutions and best services to the customer. Government doesn't have that incentive because the money that they get is from us. So they have no fiduciary responsibility like private industry does to protect that dollar and to keep that customer happy. But left doesn't look to engage the private industry because that's no money for them. It's no win in it for them. While the inflation remained a concern, Democrats could say they had a solution, shifting the argument. The Biden and Democrats inflation blaming corporate greed, supply chain issues, and Republican economic policies. Again, Republicans gave ground. They didn't stand on their ground. They didn't stand on their principles of the benefit of lower government, less regulations. This is a winnable argument. It always wins. Look at what Trump has done. Look at throughout history, where you look at Reagan, you look at Trump, or any, even in your own household, when you reduce impediments, artificial impediments to a goal that you're trying to achieve and just go at it without causing harm, of course, it's a much straighter line. And so therefore it doesn't cost as much to get to that goal. It's the same thing in any situation, particularly when it comes to government. A couple of years ago, we here in Atlanta had a major bridge go out. And they needed to get that bridge replaced ASAP. What did they do? The governor removed all regulations that was seen as an impediment to getting that bridge repaired ASAP. And they did it in record time. My question is, why didn't they keep those regulations off the books and then bring them back? If they saw how well, because no one died, the bridge didn't fall down after they repaired it. So what regulations were in place before that apparently were not necessary? Question. Instead of blaming external factors, they passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Lower prescription drug costs by allowing Medicare to negotiate. Medicare don't negotiate. It's government. So, again, word manipulation, wordplay, Orwellian doublespeak, redefining what is. Yeah, classic. Invest in clean energy to reduce long-term costs, which it doesn't. It can't. Clean energy is dirty. It's dirty. is dirty. There's no such thing as clean energy. And raise corporate taxes, so therefore it costs more to do business in our country. To fund government programs. See, always work to benefit government growth and therefore increase the weight on those who pay taxes in this country. Instead of blaming inflation on external factors, Biden passed the bill. Republicans forced to either support or oppose tangible legislation rather than just debating inflation in theory. Again, you see it, it's repetition. Republicans give ground, Democrats charge forward and take ground. Trump, on the other hand, came with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, attacking high taxes and offering Republican solution. So again, he's using Saul Alinsky's tactics to rebuff or attack the Democrats, the left use of these same tactics. Democrats attacked the bill as benefiting the wealthy, but Trump's side could defend it as an economic growth strategy. Trump attacked the U.S. tax system as being unfair to businesses, too high for the middle class, and hurting economic growth, which, as anyone knows, taxes does just that. It does. High taxes does hurt economic growth. Regulation hurts economic growth. Instead of criticizing, Trump's team proposed a solution. Cut personal income tax across multiple brackets. His tax plan reduced corporate taxes from 35%, was killing us in regards to international competitiveness, to 21%, and argued it was stimulate economic growth. He used successfully this rule to force Democrats to argue against specific tax cuts, rather than just defending the old system. When criticized as favoring the wealthy, Trump could point to middle class benefits. Rule 12. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. This rule is about isolating an opponent, making them the face of the opposition, and turning them into a divisive figure to weaken their influence and credibility. Obama used this like he's a master, targeting Mitt Romney and his associations with Bain Capital, personalizing Romney as an out-of-touch millionaire, which is pretty pathetic because Obama was a millionaire and is much more of a millionaire after being president than he was before. How did that happen? But no, I won't talk about that. 2012 election, he painted Mitt Romney as the elitist, highlighted his tenure at Bain Capital, accusing him of destroying American jobs. This is rich because, as we go into later, he spearheaded Acorn, which ruined many people's lives. He used the leak 47% comment to brand him as someone who didn't care about half of Americans. And we went over that 47% comment earlier. Portrayed him as rich, disconnected businessman, comparing him to Wall Street. The strategy worked. Romney was isolated as a symbol of corporate greed, Again, he didn't push back. He didn't fight back. He didn't tell about Obama's wealthy family and where he came from, and plus his hand in Acorn. I wonder why. It's like Republicans don't really want to win. They don't want to bring a gun to a gunfight. They steady wanted to bring not even a knife, but a bat. And then they wonder how come they get pummeled and slaughtered in the fights. This Rule 12 is used to personalize the election by making Romney the villain, not just Republicans. Froze the attack by constantly tying him to bank capital in the 47% comment, which is definitely taken out of context. Polarized him by making the election a choice between a wealthy corporate raider versus a president who fought for the middle class. Obama used it to demonize MAGA extremists in 2022 election. Isolated Trump and his supporters as a threat to democracy, which, again, if you repeat something enough times, it will be something that's true, especially when they see no efficient pushback. And that's how, incredibly, Trump's MAGA was able to be turned into anti-American or threat to democracy, which is pretty interesting if you know the definition of democracy and have this come from a leftist. But anyway, yeah, look that up yourself. It's very, the left depends on the ignorance of the American people. Not to say all politicians don't, but the left does it. They talk about stuff that they know is crazy. And they know if they just go and look it up, they know I'm for the BS. But they are counting on we not doing that. They're counting on that. And you can't really say that the strategy isn't working. Instead of just attacking Republicans, the Biden team focused on Trump and MAGA as extremists. Speech in Philadelphia 2022 labeled MAGA as a threat to democracy. January 6 hearings positioned Trump as a lawless authoritarian, which is pretty rich, authoritarian, coming from Biden. Pushed the term MAGA Republicans to separate them from traditional conservatives. Used Trump's legal troubles to isolate him as a figure of chaos and instability. This forced some Republicans to distance themselves from Trump, weakening his support network, which I find so irritating, because Democrats can put forth a candidate who has himself admitted he leans socialist. He leans socialist. He admitted it in his book, referring to Obama. Then have Biden, who was cognitively challenged from the beginning of his campaign, so much kept him in the basement. Then had the decency to come out on the campaign trail to face the people who were going to vote for him, change the rules to remove Bernie Sanders, and then change the rules again after his cognitive decline became visible to the whole world, to inject a woman who didn't get one vote when she ran on her own against Biden, to put her in the place of Biden to be voted on to be president. all the Democrats, you didn't hear one Democrat say anything in opposition strongly or out of line. You got to get the devil his due. Democrats do stuff as a unit. They are on script from day one. It's like they are on a chat line. When a word come out to one, it goes out to all, and they are on point. They got to be some moderates in the Democrat Party. People can't be this much of single speak and single thought. Can't be. But some could say that the Republicans are better because we do have differences of views. And sometimes those differences of views come out and we are honest, supposedly, to say, I don't like what he or she is thinking. I don't like what he or she is doing. I don't like what he or she is saying. You can look at that as a good thing, but we are in a fight. Some things had to be kept behind doors, and then when we come out into the room, we gotta be one voice for the betterment. But we haven't learned our lesson to that point yet. This was used successfully and to target Trump personally rather than just broad Republican policies. Froze him in the threat to democracy label, making it hard for him to be rebranded or to rebrand. Polarized him, forcing Republicans to either defend or distance themselves. Democrats don't do that. That's an issue. That's a serious issue when you look at the damage that Democrats have done and are doing to this country. It needs to be pointed out. And there's something, I mean, I give it the Borg label because they act like they're the Borg. You will be made to change. Or else. And how many of y'all are for that? You'll be assimilated. That's not good for a political party, national political party, that wishes to lead a nation that was built on individuality, individual thought, individual freedoms. I guess they don't have enough of a problem with that because they keep getting voted in locally, nationally. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. But that kind of goes to the success of Alinsky's tactics, right? Trump used it, the same strategy, in making Hillary a symbol of corruption. Trump didn't just attack Democrats. He focused on Hillary Clinton personally, nicknamed her Crooked Hillary. How many of y'all remember that? To reinforce corruption allegations, and there are many. Constantly brought up her private email server scandal, post-Benghazi attack criticism, framing her as responsible for American deaths, encouraged lock her up chance to make her the embodiment of elite corruption. The strategy worked, even among swing voters, as Clinton was seen as untrustworthy. This will work because it froze her in place, making her defend herself constantly, polarized her, making the election a battle of Trump, the outsider, versus Hillary, the corrupt insider. Trump fought back. Trump fought back. It's unfortunate not enough Republicans do on a national level, which kind of leads into this notion that we are part of the federal, on a federal level, is a uniparty, because it doesn't seem to be any real true opposition party that is a counterbalance to the Democrats to win the war, not just the battle, to win the war. There doesn't seem to be a true opposition party. Democrats oppose everything Republican administration brings, particularly a strong one like Trump's. How many of y'all remember a strong, fierce, cohesive Republican opposition against the most Marxist-led administration, that being the Obama administration, for 8 years? How many of y'all remember a strong, solid Republican opposition party against Biden, a man who was suspected to be not all there day one? I'll wait. There was none. There was none. So, Saul Alinsky's theology reshaped America. This was a quote that I got out of, I read this article from way back I had in my collection, from the World Review Report. And this was titled, actually you can still find this online. Saul Alinsky, 1909-1972, and his powerful disciples. We'll get into that. But this quote came from Investors Business Daily in 2009. Alinsky's worldview was that mankind is divided into three parts: the haves, the have-nots, and the have a little, want mores. Excuse me. His purpose was to teach the have-nots how to take power and money away from the haves by creating mass organizations to seize power, and he admitted this means revolution. He admitted it. Go look at this further. His reshaping of America. He inspired movements like community organization, and through 2017 to, through 1970s to the 1900s. Remember Acorn? We'll get into that in a few minutes. And labor unions. Obama's early political strategy. He worked as a community organizer under Alinsky's methods. How many of y'all remember Occupy Wall Street? He used rule number one. Power is what the enemy thinks you have. Black Lives Matter. How many of y'all remember that? Use rule 10. Push negative until it becomes a positive. Now, for conservatives to combat being pummeled by the left with these strategies and theologies, they had to incorporate it into their arsenal. They adopt their uses by Trump 2016 used Rule 5. Ridicule is a man's most potent weapon to label his opponents. White right-wing media use this strategy to focus on personalizing attacks, fake news, deep state. The Tea Party movement used this strategy in '09. Used Rule 8, keep the pressure on against Obama's policies. Further, his theology has reshaped America. It changed how political fights are fought. Political campaigns today use Alinsky-style framing, making elections personal and polarizing. How many of you noticed that? No longer are issues being discussed like in times of Reagan. It's personal. It's polarization. And when did this start? Obama. No coincidence. We don't talk about issues. We don't talk about how you're going to make this country great. That's talked about at the back end. This past election wasn't talked about how Trump's policies were going to make this country better. He talked about it himself. This wasn't talked about, this election wasn't about Biden or Harris' view of America, how to make it better. It couldn't have been because Kamala was talking about birthrights and men having babies, fertility stuff. The focus was not on how to make this country better for the next generation, more wealthier, more freer. It wasn't about how we could keep our nation's enemies at bay and how to make our nation's alliances better and stronger. It wasn't anything close to a JFK kind of vision from the Democrat Party. It was allowed to be a Reagan-like vision from the Republican side for the nation. Just polarizing nonsense. Activists on both sides use his strategy to disrupt institutions, pressure leaders, and gain media attention. The loudest voice, most buffoonish actions, the clown show. Social media amplifies Alinsky tactics by making it easier to target individuals, ridicule opponents, and spread messaging. Here we go. Now, this could be information that I directly got from this article that I referred to earlier, Worldview Report. And I'm just going to go over some of it. It starts off very interestingly. And this article was by Brandon House. Gives some background on not just Saul Alinsky, but the whole theology behind Saul Alinsky and his, I guess, creation of this book, Ruthless Radicals. A young Italian Marxist by the name of Antonio Gramsci advised World War II dictator Alinsky that violence was not the way to bring about lasting revolution people would embrace and maintain. Gramsci wrote eloquently of a quiet, quote-unquote, revolution, one that would transform a culture from within by changing the basic worldview of each and every institution in society. He also cautioned that this revolution would be a long march through the institutions, quote unquote. not a blitzkrieg of change, and so clear his strategy thinking that Gromyski targeted Christianity specifically as the greatest philosophical adversary along the way. So you wonder why Christendom is being attacked? It has been so viciously attacked since Obama and through these Alinskynites like Hillary, like Biden, through their administrations and leadership. Goes on to say, later in the 12th century, Gromyski's vision captivated another rising neo-Marxist who codified the Gromyski dream in a 1971 book, Rules for Radicals. The pragmatic premier for realistic radicals, there Saul Alinsky detailed the need to penetrate the middle class and reorganize from within. Alinsky's articulate tactics for infiltrating every conceivable social institution, including churches. Including churches. And I want you to take a look at this list, this very short list. Hillary Clinton wrote her senior thesis at Wellesley College on Alinsky's and his strategies. Barack Obama, while at Harvard, attended an industrial areas foundation, attended the industrial areas foundation, a group founded by Alinsky. And when he returned to Chicago, Obama taught Saul Alinsky's world view and strategies. He was engrossed in this man's strategies. And they both were in Chicago. Columbia University professor Richard Andrew Cloward and Francis Fox Pippins studied Alinsky and developed the Cloud-Pippin strategy, which advocates implementing socialism by swamping the welfare system of states as well as the federal government with new recipients. The social welfare system grew not like no other time under Obama and Biden. Historic levels, particularly under Obama, because he had 4 years. And when you look at the growth of immigrants under Obama, under Biden, to go onto the social welfare system. Have y'all seen what's going on in California? Have y'all seen what's going on in New York? Have y'all seen what's going on in Illinois? In countless cities, particularly those that have high minority and low income populations. When you have such a huge influx of low income individuals, many of them low educated, that don't speak our language, rather than put them in a situation like at the turn of the century where they were brought into the culture more structurally, but they were assimilated better. None of those structures were applied in this case, not even attempted. It was seen as racist to even attempt to make these people more like us. we had to become more accepting of everything that they did. And we were seen as racist or xenophobes if we even tried to apply Western culture or American culture or respect for our customs even. Don't do that. Don't respect Christmas. Christmas, again, that goes back to the attack on Christianity in particular. Islam is given free reign. You see what's happening today? Radical Islamists are going through the cities, beating up Jews, beating up and tearing down Christian monuments. And you know what's going on in Europe? Klaus Piffen. New York and other municipalities are going broke trying to feed all these people, house all these people. Infrastructure is not there. George Wiley. Who's George Wiley? George Wiley, black man, for y'all who didn't know, which I thought was pretty interesting. There's no color bounds. It's just people who want people to pay for what they want. Handouts. Again, battle between the have-nots and the wanna-haves. And as Margaret Thatcher said, socialism only works until the people in government run out of money. Because if there's no, if the bucket is not being full or made full or filling by the education of the people to become more affluent, to become more of a participant in the capitalist system, then eventually the capitalist system is going to run dry of resources. That's why America is on one of fringe right now, because it's basically we've been running on the successes of our forefathers, because these type of theologies and ideas have been injected into our cultures since the industrial age, definitely since World War II, where Americanism has been made a bad word. The disciplines that came with Christianity has been thrown out the window and relegated to the far back seats. And nothing better has been put in its place. Something's going to fill that void. Something has filled that void. Look at our culture. Our culture is not going forward. It's not progressing. It's degressing. It's going backwards. And theology such as this is filling that void. So George Wiley was a chemist in the 1960s, turned to activism, championing civil rights and economic justice. So he not only plugged into Saul Alinsky, he also founded the NWRO, which is the National Welfare Rights Organization, to push this ideology more and more out into the culture. Then came Ray Rathen, who worked with George Wiley for a minute, and then he went on to found Acorn. He went on to found Acorn. And then he later partnered up with another leftist extremist, Bill Myers. He founded, how many of y'all remember Weather Underground? If y'all are anywhere near Philadelphia, I know y'all know what Weather Underground. And Weather Underground is came from the Socialist Democrat. SDS. Which are still very much associated with the Democrat Party. So you see, Saul Alinsky is still present on the left in regards to his politics. I told you about Acorn. Ray Rathke started Acorn. Why is that important? Because as a young attorney, going back to this article again, young attorney in the 1990s, Barack Hussein Obama represented Acorn in Washington in their successful efforts to expand Community Reinvestment Act authority. In addition to making it easier for Acorn groups to force banks to making risky loans to people who couldn't afford the loans, who wouldn't qualify for the loans, was financially ill-suited for the loans. Not racist economics, but Acorn forced banks to make these risky loans. This also paved the way for banks like Superior to package mortgages as investments, and for the government-sponsored enterprise Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to underwrite them. The financial housing crisis that made headlines in 2007 was brought on through Saul Alinsky's idea. Via cloud-pivot strategy of implementing socialism through big government, destruction of contract law, and free market principles. You don't loan people who you know can't afford it. I don't see. That's just simple. This economic sabotage was first tried in New York City, and by 1975, the city was on the verge of financial devastation. I mean, y'all remember that. All through New York, although New York had a manageable 150,000 welfare cases in 1960, a decade later, just a decade later, the number had soared to 1.5 million. Problem? Let me see. Problem? Anyone see a problem with that? Our country is in a world of hurt. I've said this many times. And Saul Alinsky's core message or core MO is that he's wanted to move the U.S. from capitalism to socialism, going back to this article, where the means of production will be owned by all people, i.e. government. A behavior and economic determinism. He viewed unemployment, disease, crime, bigotry as byproducts of capitalism. Change was Alinsky's favorite word. Hope and change, right? Change was a favorite word used on page after page. I will argue, he wrote, that man's hopes lie in the acceptance of the great law of change. Class envy, race baiting, anti-Christian bigotry, and redistribution of wealth describe the change from which Alinsky was calling. It would not be a stretch, and in fact, it is a point to suggest that Alinsky was the source for candidate Obama's 2008 campaign slogan. Scripture also warns that the wrong kind of change. Scripture goes on to say, he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Daniel 9:25. The underlying strategy, when you want to say he wasn't a Marxist, some will argue, but the underlying strategy, well, Marxist begins with the prime truth that all evils are caused by the exploitation of the proletariat, you and I, the people, the little people, by the capitalists, excuse me. For this, he logically proceeds to the revolution to the end, to end capitalism, then into the third stage of reorganization into the new social order of dictatorship of the proletariat. You know, go from capitalism to be under dictatorship. Great. Yeah. That's what I wanted. Yeah. And finally, the last stage, political paradise of communism. This is what we need to look at. He says he's not, well, he don't say now, but he said he wasn't a communist. But smell like a pig, look like a pig, it's a pig. When you look at the two, we look at Karl Marx and you look at Saul Alinsky, they both focus on class and power struggle themes. Alinsky encouraged mobilizing have-nots against the haves, which aligns with Marxist narratives of class struggle. His focus on attacking elites resonates with left-wing populism and socialist rhetoric. Example, the modern progressive movement often frames corporations, the wealthy, and political elitists as oppressors, a theme seen in both Alinsky tactics and Marxist theology. Use of polarization and social conflict. Rule 12. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. It's often used by social activists to isolate opponents, similar to how Marxists identify a bourgeois enemy. Example, white privilege and systemic oppression. Narratives target certain groups as oppressors, much like how Marxists target capitalists. Long-term societal change via cultural institutions. Alinsky's tactics emphasize controlling narratives, applying constant pressure, and changing public perception, which aligns with cultural Marxism. Focus on reshaping institutions, e.g. media, education, and law. Example, progressives push for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Policies in corporations and education mirrors Marxist goals of dismantling old power structures. And you can even see Marxist theology and techniques way back to how Mao used it in the Chinese Revolution. Alinsky is doing the same thing. Just wrapped it in a different package and put it up in the tree for other like-minded people, individuals to unwrap it later. If we don't recognize the evil and the danger of people who use these type of strategies and techniques against us, doesn't matter if it's a female, doesn't matter if it's black or white, doesn't matter if it's old or young. If they're calling for the end of all traditions, the end and the contamination of all Christian beliefs and theology, the end of our reverence for our founders, you have to push back on them, or we will lose this country. There is no two ways of looking at this. Alinsky's theology, religion, is alive and well because too many people do not know about him and his theology and how it is affecting our political environment and our cultural environment. And too many of us don't hold Republican politicians accountable. And that, at the end of the day, and you ain't not necessarily to be a voter per se, but you still have to understand at the local level who your leaders are in politics and hold them accountable. Because it's not about money. It can't be. It has to be about doing the right thing, right and wrong, and is that person honest? And that goes far beyond right and wrong, and goes far beyond are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? It comes down to are you an American?
Thanks for listening to today's show. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. And look for Project Third Eye Open on your favorite social media platforms. Check out our webpage at projectthirdeyeopen.com, and that's third eye with the letter I, projectthirdeyeopen.com. Or drop us a note at tonyel@